Okay, so hello. My name is Jennifer Hale, affectionately known as Dr. Jen, and I am here for my regular Tuesday night live. So I do come on every Tuesday at 9 p.m. Sometimes I may go on a little bit earlier. I do find other times when I can go on live, but I have at least dedicated Tuesday to be the day that I will work on some sort of quilting project. So thank you, as always, to the Black Sewing Network for pushing me to do these lives and to share my gifts and talents with you. So we have been working for the month of March in this book. So this book is Zakka Sewn, and it is by Rashida Coleman Hale. The link, of course, is in my bio. And this is a great, I like to call it a beginner book. So it has at least 20-ish types of projects in there. And some of them are regular sewn projects like these pillows. She does have quilts in there. So here is a small wall hanging. I've worked on this and posted this. And then of course, some of the pictures on the back, we are working on this today, which is a placemat and a napkin ring. So she has other things like bags, full quilts, that you can get door hangings, that all sorts of things that you can learn how to make. I believe that the directions are simple and easy enough for you to follow. And one of the things that I say about any pattern, which you will see today, is once you figure it out, you're going to make it into what you want to make it into. So you are not married to whatever she has. So if you look at this and you say, this is too small, I want this bigger, you can absolutely make this bigger. Hello, as I'm not looking to see who's here right now. So welcome in. How are you doing, Miss Shamir? Hello. How are you doing, Zieri? How are you? Thank you for the compliment about the fabrics. Thank you. So like I said, I've been working on different things through the book because for me, it was a challenge to do this book because sometimes I'll buy the book and then there's only one pattern in here that I will use. And there are tons of patterns. I might not use everything. So I may not have a need for these accent pillows. So I might not do those, but of course I have the buttons and I could do these, but this is an easy sew. It didn't necessarily have to be a sew along, but this is something that I could make and then I could just post the video to show you what these results are. So we are making the placemat. And I'm going to show you, I did not round the edges because I don't like rounded edges. That's just me. So I kept it square. So here is the placemat itself. So I left this very plain, very simple. I used the fabrics that are sitting here in front of me. And the only thing was I did use a fat quarter on the back. So I used this fat quarter and I just made it for the back. So this is the placemat that I made. And then this is the napkin ring. And so it sits however it sits when you're place setting. And I, of course, had a napkin because I'm Susie. Let's have all kinds of company. So I have plenty of these cloth napkins. And if I take this out, so here it's just a cuff, right? So it's just this piece here. It does have batting in it. And there are there is a snap set and it just snaps into place and there you go. And of course, after trying to figure out the folds and everything else for the napkin, I got it in there and then there we go. However you decide to make that napkin look. Okay. So that's what we're working on today. And I felt like it was an easy enough project to do. The hardest part, and it's not hard, but the hardest part is just putting these lines together. Like that's the hardest part, that's it. And then matching up this center right here, because this is not one straight line. This is like a little 4-patch here that gets rotated to figure out how it's going to fit with the crosses of these lines, okay? So I cut out all my fabrics. So here are all of the colored fabrics. I did go with batik because I'm using up a lot of my scraps. I had this scrap from years ago. I made a bag out of this and I had this left over. So I cut this for the background, for the backing. I just finished another project. So then this is the background. Behind me hanging up, I have my fusible fleece. So I am using fusible fleece. You can absolutely use scraps of regular fleece if you would like. The only difference is that you either are going to spray baste it so that the fleece doesn't shift while you're doing your quilting, or you could not. That's up to you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So the background, let's take this one out because that's the backing and we don't need that. So the layout of the background, let me turn it this way. It's like that. Okay. So you can see how all the pieces go. And then we are going to strategically, and that's one of the reasons why I pulled it out. I wanted some matchy-matchiness to it, but I didn't have to have a lot of matchy-matchy, because I can do this any way that I want. How are you doing, Miss Belinda? And I don't have to use all the same colors. So I absolutely can take my scraps and I can mix this up any way that I see fit. I used orange before, but I'm going to switch. I'm going to mix this up just a little bit. These are here. And let me see. I need to go across green. So I'm just laying this out because I do like to lay it out. Make sure I have all the pieces I have, even though sometimes, yeah, we mess up. So I don't want red, orange. One, two. I see what I did. I might need two more because somebody didn't count right. But we won't discuss who that somebody is, but I think I did it right. And green up here. And then orange. Hey, Loria, how are you doing, darling? And then we can set these off to the side because I can use them for the third one that I have. So I'm in the chain piece, and I said common sense would have said to do all three, but why do that? So I'm doing I'm doing two of them. And then these two are going to go opposite. And then these two are going to go, if I did that right, but we'll figure that one out when we get there. I think this goes like this and this in that space because they're going to be on that side. And then I think this goes like that. Okay. So this is essentially the layout for that. And ask me how I know to lay it out ahead of time because, yeah, we like to make mistakes here in Haleville. And so because we like to make mistakes in Haleville, we like to lay things out ahead of time to make sure that everything goes the way it's supposed to. How are you doing, Janine? Awesome. Absolutely. I'm glad that you are enjoying it. I got to sneeze. Thank you. Well, I'm saying thank you to myself. Okay, so for the book again, and you can see it in the little picture right here, they do a rounded look. So you would have to cut out the template, or you could use some sort of rounded object to do the rounded part. I prefer it to be square or rectangular, so I'm not cutting out that rounded part, but that's up to you. What we're going to do is do our strips first. We're going to do the center blocks, and then we're going to attach the background color after that. Okay, so we are using a 1/4 inch seam to do this. If I could tell you, it like as humid as it was outside, either I am going through my personal summer right now, or it's warm in this house. I don't know which it is. Probably warm in the house. Okay, so we're gonna take our first 2 pieces, and we have 2 of these, and we're just going to stitch these together. Thank you. And we're gonna do a 1/4 inch. So this is how easy this is. And again, what I like about this is that you can make a decision as to how you want this to go. So if you decide that you don't want all 4 colors, even though batiks are so bright that those 4 colors just work really well together, and especially with the background color. But you could absolutely use 2 colors. You don't have to use 4. You could make the strip bigger and use 1 color. So, and then use like a bold print. So once you get the idea of what it is that you're making, you can create whatever design you want. Okay, we'll take the next 2, and I'm just chain piecing them because it's easier to chain piece like a factory style than it is to do each individual one, and then we'll separate them once we finish. Oops. You feel some kind of way to do a back stitch, you can absolutely do that. It will prevent your seams from coming apart when you're putting everything together. Sometimes it matters, sometimes it doesn't. So we're just getting right there. We've done 2 sides, all the reds and the purples. And again, I switched the colors up just a little bit. I'll do this one. From what I had done previously with the other one. So the other one, I think, yeah, I put red and orange together. This time I'm putting the green and the orange together. They're all the same colors. If I decide that, hey, I want to, you know, give away a set, gift a set, sell a set. So some people will sell placemats in sets of 2s, sets of 4, sets of 6s. So it's usually in pairs. Then it's nice to have 2 of them look alike. If you're me, I will absolutely make 1 or 2 because it's just me. And I only need so many sets if I have company. So I may have a set for Christmas. I may have a set for Thanksgiving. I may have a set for Easter. Like I may have sets like that for different occasions, but I don't need just random sets to have a bunch because it's just me. So you would make the decision like who you're making it for and how many you need. Traditionally, if people have a big enough dining table, you might go 6 in a set. You may mass produce these with your scraps, which is what I love about this. I'm going to sew the red and the purple together, and then the orange and the green. And then I'm going to play with these before I lay them out, because ask me who had to rip them out and do them again when she made the sample one. These are really tiny, and I am going to backstitch because I did find them coming apart when I did this. So again, I am using the book Zakka Sewn, and it is by Rashida Coleman Hale. And since she is a female for the month of March for Women's History Month, I have been featuring her book and her projects in the book. I have tried as much as I possibly could to, and I think I've succeeded. I've stayed in the quilting part of it. So it may not have been a quilt, but it was a quilted pouch. Or it was, you know, a small quilt, or now in this case, it's like a quilted placemat. So I've tried to stay with the quilt theme and just work on different projects that, you know, she has in the book. There are some projects in the book that are not quilted. So like the pillows are not quilted. But if you are a fan of quilting them, you absolutely can make them, outline them, and quilt them. Okay. So chain pieced, everything is connected together. We're going to cut off that excess. I'm going to place these back where they go. I need to do some pressing. I did choose to open up the seams for this. You can do closed seams if you like, pressing to one side. And I think in her book, she says to press them to the center. Again, pressing seams to the dark side is a personal preference in some cases. Sometimes it absolutely makes sense to do it that way, and sometimes you can get away with doing your own thing. Hey RV, how are you doing, darling? Okay, I'm gonna hold on to these because I'll lose those. And we are going to move these over for a second because we don't need these. And we're going to pull our iron in because now we need to press. And this is the other thing that I love about chain piecing, is that when you're working like this, then you can just take everything to your iron at the same time. So I'm not doing a section ironing, I'm actually doing everything at one time. I can take my finger press it open. One thing that I like about batiks is they're a lot tighter of a fabric, and so they're a lot more crisper, and in some cases you can get away with just finger pressing. So I'm just opening up those seams. Again, I'm choosing to open the seams up. Oops, I don't think I opened that up. Nope. Make sure they both go the same way. I'm going to do the two longer ones. So hopefully everybody is safe. I know that if you were on the East Coast, especially along the I-95 corridor, we had what was like a tornado watch. Many of us did not get a tornado, thank God. We did get a lot of high winds. So around this time yesterday, you could hear the wind whipping and twisting outside. There were a couple things in the yards that you could hear moving around, but thank goodness it wasn't as bad as they predicted. So the weather here has been a little tricky. Like even today was warm. And it was just like, okay, like, is it warm? Is it cold? Is it hot? Is it humid? And in some ways, I think like, I don't know if I'm just happy because there wasn't any snow, because we've had snow. It was back in the 90s. But we've had snow in April. So that, that's possible. March is not over. Spring, technically, the date is just coming upon us this weekend. So anything is still possible with the time that we have left. It was cold for you. It wasn't cold. Like this morning was a little strange. And then this afternoon, I thought it was warm. I was in my car with my heat on, like, you've lost your mind. And you can see I wore a t-shirt today because I am the shenanigans coordinator for my 9th grade academy, because they were doing the most. I said, is it a full moon? Because if mommy isn't on the floor, they do too much. I told them, I said, I don't know if y'all are in kindergarten or if you're in the 9th grade. I don't know if you're 9 or 9th. But they were just doing some extra stuff today. And I was like, okay, y'all need mommy to come sit with y'all. So mommy will sit with y'all for the rest of the week. Oh, wow. And I don't know, maybe, wasn't out long enough, but I thought, every time I got in and out the car to do something, I thought it wasn't that bad. But it could have been worse in Maryland than it was just here in Philly. Okay, these are little teeny weeny little pieces, but thank goodness there are only 8 of them. Well, if you do all 4, then you have 16 of them, but it's not a million. Because believe it or not, there are people who absolutely make quilts out of pieces this big. And I'm like, yes, more power to you. Because it wouldn't be me. Okay, once I get this open, and then we do the 4 patch for these little itty bitty little teeny little itty bitty ones, then we will begin to put the strips with the background. And so the great thing about this is that this is a quick project. It really doesn't take that long at all. They also didn't have a lot of quilting with it. I don't think I made extra bobbin. They didn't have a lot of quilting with it, so I was like, that's perfect too. Okay, I'm just gonna set those because my brain needs to function the way that my brain needs to function, and it can't function unless I lay it out. Hey, Miss Avis. Miss Avis, you could just send that prize to me. That's all I'm gonna say. Just send me that prize. But congratulations. Was that just a serger or was that a cover stitch? Okay. Okay, it does both. Okay. I was sitting there, I said, I could just imagine what is going through her mind for winning that. I was like, okay. Even though I was like, congratulations, I was like, I'm just going to come right over to her house and take all her stuff because she'll need all the machines at her house. So let me see what I'm going to be donating to Goodwill and what'll come in to take out of Miss Ava's house. I said, okay, she's gonna be like a Julian. It's always, everybody's always the ones. So we put these together, and you can see that little mini 4-patch. And also, congratulations on getting the Bargello done. Because I'm just gonna say, I was ready to come for you for that, and I was like, when I saw it on the wall, I said, "Good job, girl, good job." Because you know everybody's coming for you for that Bargello. Okay, and we're gonna do that one here, so you can see this is the way that they're going to look. And again, I can just kind of finger press them because they're batik, and they'll kind of hold their shape. But if I want to give it a quick press, I can. Okay, so my center is done. And I can make a decision on which sides I want to work on first. So I have my top part here, and then I have these. And I only need 2 of these because I'm only making 2. I can take this one out, and we'll save this one for later. Hey, Justina, how are you doing, darling? I said it's always the ones who have 1 ticket that win everything. You go out and you get like 1,000,000 tickets, and you're like, I'm just going to increase my chances. And then the person that has 1 ticket, they win. Or in my case, I say, it's never me. I'm like, how did I win? And then I'm mad. Well, I'm never mad with winning, but I'm mad because I'm like, I wanted something else. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to stitch this together, this together. Then we're going to go back and add this to this, and then add this to this. So this part will be done, this part will be done, and then we're going to add this to these. So I am going to turn these around because somebody needs to make sure that these are in the right order before we start putting things together. Did I do that right? We get ready to, we're gonna make it do what it do. Because I didn't do it right, but that's fine. Because it's gonna do what it do. Nope, I still didn't do it right. I was supposed to do this the other way. And that's what seam rippers are for. Hey, Lavette. I think. And the good thing is that I just did this. Let me turn this around for a second. Let me see if I can make this work. Nope, it's still not going to work the way I want it to. Did I turn it around the right way? So we'll take those out. It never fails for me that I will look at it, I say that it works, and then it doesn't work. Even though it was working when I looked at it. But somewhere in there, I screwed it up. But they say that's what we have seam rippers for. Because then we can go in and pull those seams out, and then we can do it again. And if we can't, we can absolutely make 2 more. Because I am a big person, and I will absolutely make 2 more and then use those for something else, or I will, they'll go into my, well, you messed up pile. And it just depends on how big or how small these are. Again, these are really tiny. And so if I can't think of a purpose for them, I will absolutely throw them in the scrap pile. But unlike some people, I'm not throwing big pieces of scraps in the scrap pile. I only throw small pieces of scraps in the scrap pile because I can always use a scrap. Okay, now I have to play this game with myself of what I was looking at when I did this. So that's first of all, that's my first problem. My first problem is that I'm not looking at this correctly. And I should be looking at this like this. Now, mind you, somebody has one that's already finished. So how somebody already has one that's already finished, who shall remain nameless, I don't understand how when she has something that she has something finished, how she didn't look at that. So it's not go straight across. So that was probably right what I did, but it wasn't go straight across. It was this. So then that means that then, and we'll fix it to make it do what it's supposed to do. This is to carry over here. And this carries over here, like that. So that's the way those go together. This is what happens when you pay attention to what you're doing, rather than not paying attention to what you're doing. And then they all go together like that. So we will re-put together these the way they're supposed to go. And they were wrong, so I don't feel bad that I ripped them apart now. But that's what happens when you don't pay attention. I was saying earlier, I had a nail in my tire, but I also decided this summer, when they told me how much it was going to cost me to get all 4 tires replaced, I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that. And so since I opted not to get all 4 tires replaced this summer, then God saw fit to make sure that I didn't get in an accident, didn't have a blowout, didn't get stranded, but yep, I'm gonna give her a sign, and I had a nail in my tire. So now, knowing that I needed new tires, I had to take it to get the new tire. And when you go to get new tires, of course, you need 2 tires. You shouldn't just get 1. And the next thing I know, he swung me a deal and gave me 4 brand new ones. So I had 4 brand new tires. I left my car there, went to work. They drop you off, and then they pick you up at the end of the day. So I had 4 new tires that are on my car now. And of course, winter's almost over. So I told them I was living living a little dangerously out there in the streets with these bald tires that they were like, girl, you should have been got them fixed. So then I always make people feel a certain kind of way, because when they tell me that, I go, well, my husband used to take care of all that for me. Then people leave me alone. Hey, Karen. Okay, now everything is set the way that we need it to go. One thing to know about me is I'm going to make a project and I'm going to make a mistake. We're going to line everything up. All our measurements should be good. And then we're going to sew everything together. And we're doing this in sections. And we talked about this in January. you are basically making a 9 patch, but this is a 9 patch that isn't even, right? So a 9 patch, we would have 9 squares, all the same size, but we have 1, 2, 3. Here's one patch of 3 of 9. Here's another set of 9. Here's another, 3 and another set of 3. So we have 9, but they're all different sizes, but we're putting everything together like we would put a 9 patch together. And again, you can mix this up any way that you like, but you're still putting it together like you would put a 9 patch together. I have to remember to take that bag out of my house. I have a mentor at school, and I said, oh, I could give her one of my bags. And every week, where's the bag? It's still in the house when I go to work. Okay, I'm going to make sure that our lines are lined up. This is the only place where we have to make sure those seams are lined up. And just again, doing that chain stitching. Making sure that I have everything lined up. Welcome in, everyone. We are working on a place setting, if you will, placemat. Why don't I see one of these? We are working on a placemat and a napkin ring, because there's 2 in here, that's why. And we are creating them as a set. So this is the placemat. I did not round the edges like they did in the book. And here is the napkin ring. And it has a snap, so that snap can go on and hold it in place. And of course, I love this because it can go in a washing machine. So when the kids come over, or if you already have kids, or, you know, even some of your family members, and they get something wet, spill something on it, you can throw it all in the washing machine. Okay, and we're just lining everything up. Now, because I'm doing it the way that I'm doing it, I said I will press at the end. Not at the end, but I'm going to press after I get all the rows together, or all the columns, depending on how you're looking at it. So again, everything is chained. And we'll take these first 2 out. Thank you, Livette. So I could press these, but my rule is, for me, is that if nothing crosses, it's no harm, no foul. So since they don't cross, I can press them all at one time. So I'm just going to go ahead and add the other pieces. And then I will press them, because then they are going to cross when I start putting everything together. And again, if you decide to backstitch, it's up to you. You don't have to. But sometimes when you do have small pieces, or when you do a lot of tugging on something, it helps to do a little bit of a backstitch. It can't hurt it. So if everything was cut the way it was supposed to, because it's not pieced yet, they should fit end to end. If they don't, if it's a little bit of fudging, a little bit of tug, you could go ahead and do it. If not, you can trim some of that off at the end. Okay, so those 2 pieces are done. We're gonna cut off the other ones. Okay, so then this is gonna go like this. And what I like these pieces are so small, if they're not perfect, nobody's gonna know. So the only time usually that people can tell that I messed something up in a quilt or a project, 9 times out of 10, is if I tell them. If it is a small enough mistake or a small enough thing that is just a little bit off, the person who knows nothing about quilting or sewing isn't going to see it. If it's way off, they're going to see it. But to people that still know nothing about quilting or sewing, they might assume that's the way it's supposed to look. So they're not even going to question what you did. They're going to be too busy walking around being happy that you made them something. Now, if they were my mother, that'd be a whole different story, because then she could notice everything. It was like, tag, can you just say thank you? And then sometimes, like when we post things online, sometimes our quilter friends will notice things because, you know, they're trained to notice it. And it's just all in the delivery. So tell me mine is upside down and I'm okay with that. Or give me a suggestion for how to make a point. I'm okay with that, but it's all in the delivery. So you DM me and say, hey girl, you know you messed that up. I'm going to appreciate that a lot more than you just putting it right in the comments for everybody to see. And again, not that it's that big of a deal for me, but, you know, it may mean something to other people. Okay. Here we go. So usually, like, I'll send a comment, hey, you know that's upside down, girl. Hey, Carmen. She is back to the land of the living. We're going to press all this open. Thank you for getting your daily heartbeats, ladies and gents. We're going to pop this seam. And I pop this open. You can absolutely decide to press these to one side. When you are working with a light fabric in this case, most people will press it to the dark side because then that little line won't show through. Look, but you had a great time. You met your goal for those wet bags. I was like, okay, she got all them people making them wet bags while they're there. Even though, I'm not going to lie, right? When they said who wasn't going to be the most productive, I absolutely was like, Carmen, I absolutely underestimated you. I was like, she's going to be too busy walking around talking. Okay. Yes, over Carol. I absolutely did not have faith in you. And to be honest with you, I really didn't even say that it, you know, like, ooh, let me look who's there. I just said, Carmen. But you know, I know that, you know, Carol's meticulous. She's not like us. Like, I gotta make sure this is straight. That's gotta be this way. I gotta have this way. So Carol's gonna take longer to do something because she gotta be perfect. And I'm like, yeah, okay, you know. I said, the YOLO queen over there. I was like, okay. But it looked fun. It was a lot of people. I was like, wow, look at all those ladies. And gents. Oh, okay. So that top part is done. So this part is done. Let's go then move to the center. And then after we do the center, boom, we put everything together. I mean, of course, we still have to put the backing and the binding on there, but for the most part, the top will be done. See, the one thing that I'll say about Carol would be around helping everybody else because they would be like, oh, help me. How do you do this? And Carol would feel obligated to go over there and help folks. So I should have said she wouldn't have gotten her own stuff done because of that reason. I was just mad at the prizes. Yeah, okay, but you got it done. That's the whole thing, Avis. You got that quilt done. And it came out absolutely gorgeous. Okay, so that one's pressed. Let's go ahead and take out without burning myself. Look, I could imagine what it looked like. I mean, and I've seen people who have done them. I have never done one like that. I've only done the simple one, where it's just like basically, I think one size of thickness as you do subcut the strips. But, you know, she did a fabulous job on that. I can't wait to see what it looks like when she gets it quilted and bound. But, you know, she doesn't have Shamir breathing down her throat like I do about getting projects finished. But I know she has I'm going to call them the sleep crew because they keep going to bed early on me. So the sleep crew, they've been, you know, getting on Avis about getting them done. So I know they were proud of her that she finally got that bright yellow, at least the top finished. But, you know, to know what's just to know, we work on other projects. So it's not like we're not being productive at all. We're just not working on that project. Okay. Did I just do what I think I did? Yep. One of those is wrong. I don't know how I twisted that around. I don't know how. Everything else is the way it's supposed to be. I think. Okay. That's right now. There. And let me see which one is wrong. Yeah, it was big. And see, you have to go to quilt shows because then you would see quilts that big. And this is just wrong. Wrong. But guess what? I'm not ripping again. As long as those colors don't overlap, I'm good. You know that when they say who's gonna know, that's where I feel right about now. Okay, so we're going to attach the columns together just because I need to line those up, and then the outsides are out here. Yeah, I wouldn't. So unless you're Shamir, I would not suggest making something being that adventuresome if you're not used to quilting and you get frustrated easily in the process, because it takes a lot of concentration to get all those sections together, to line everything up. So it's not necessarily beginner friendly. It could be confident beginner. But I would not, like I said, I'm quick and easy. I like quick, easy things. I'm impatient. But I will work on something that takes a while. I have to do it in parts. I have to do a lot of labeling. I have to set it aside and come back to it because I'll get frustrated very quickly. And then, I'll sit back down and do it again. An easy quilt, I can bang that out in, a couple days, a couple hours, depending on what it is. But here's the thing, right? You got through the jelly roll quilt, and instead of throwing it away like you told me you did, you actually made something out of it. So you took that newfound fabric piece and made a laptop case out of it. And when you said that's what you were going to do, I absolutely made sure that I came to the live to make sure you did it. Yeah, I was like, I said, this one, she gonna throw the thing away. I said she could have packed it up in a bag and gave it to me, because I would have fixed it. But I'm glad that you did not throw it away, so that's even better. I don't even understand throwing it away because I always have a purpose for everything that I use. Okay, so we're just adding all those pieces together. And again, your layout, your way. And we're going to talk about like that napkin ring, like that takes like 10 minutes, if that, to make. She has one way of doing it, and I was like, yeah, no, not doing that. And then I did it, and then I really convinced myself I shouldn't have done it that way. But, if it works for people, if they like it, I love it. Okay. So the difference between this one, and again, this is personal preference, and we'll talk about that. This is like a pillowcase method. So because it's like a pillowcase method, you're not going to do binding for this. And especially because her original pattern called for the edges to be rounded. And I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that. I mean, from the rip, I was not rounding those edges. So because I wasn't rounding those edges, I could have used some binding, and I could have bound the table, the placemat. But I opted not to do that because I felt like it's a placemat. And if I'm going to work hard for something, it's going to be a quilt. I'm not working that hard for a placemat. Okay. So, no. Absolutely. I am not. I made the choice. I took my executive decision, and I said I'm not rounding it. I wasn't a fan of it being oval. I don't have any placemats in my house that are oval. I have some that are snowflakes, that I got for, of course, my Christmas collection. But they sit in my kitchen that I call Winter Wonderland. But I was like, I was not feeling that rounded. And so I didn't round it. And then once I made the one that I made yesterday, I was like, and I like it even better this way. So I even convinced myself that there was no reason for me to make it rounded. But to each their own in terms of preference. So if you prefer it to be rounded, you absolutely can round those corners. Okay, so I'm just pressing everything nice and flat. So that's one. So the pattern does make 4. I made one yesterday so that I had the sample already ready. And then I opted to do 2 more today. So that means that I will do 1 more offline to finish the 4. Because common sense said, which all common sense isn't common in the Hale household, but common sense said I should have done like all 4. But then I also want to make sure that the live doesn't go too long. And with my shenanigans with making things and then sometimes not paying attention to directions, what we didn't want to do is rip something out and then it take longer to complete the whole process. So I said, I'll just do the 2. Okay. So here is everything sewn together. I still like these colors are like, boom, I love that. Again, you can use fusible fleece. Fusible fleece has like a little raised edge, raised up top. This is the glue. And then this is the more smoother side, and this doesn't have glue on it. So there are some fusible fleeces that are 2-sided, but yeah, we use those a lot of times unless you have like something down like a silicone mat. You could end up ironing it. You could end up ironing it to the ironing board, and then yeah. So she does make this a little bit smaller than the top, because you're going to do a 1/4 inch all the way around, and you don't necessarily want your batting to be in the seams. So I'm eyeballing that 1/4 inch, but you can absolutely do, you can absolutely measure it. I'm going to press this, which is why I prefer the fusible. If you're not using fusible, you can use like an iron-on adhesive, or you could pin base. So I just want to press this enough to hold it in place so it doesn't shift. Now, she does not give you this as a way of quilting it, but it's personal preference at this point. So I'm just pointing it out, but there's not what I'm doing, and it's not what Rashida Coleman Hale does in her book. If you wanted to, you could quilt the heck out of this. So you could absolutely do lines, you could do your squiggles, whatever you wanted. That's not what she did. So for me, I'm just going to stitch in the ditch just to kind of hold it in place. So I don't need to change my foot for this. And I'm just going to, whoops, it would only be me. whose thread would come out right as I'm getting ready to sew this one. Okay. So I'm going to, as soon as I rethread this, I'm just going to go around the edges of the colored lines just to stitch this in place. Often your batting is not necessarily designed to not shift. This tends to be a thicker batting. It's fusible fleece. It's not like a thin batting, so it's not going to rip apart as easily as batting would be, which is why some battings you can only quilt like 2 inches apart, or some you could do 4 inches apart. With this, it really doesn't matter, but I just don't want to wash it. Everything lifts up off of it and then it gets all jumbled in there. So a few stitches right along here is what's going to hold that in place. I'm going to take my time. I am stitching on the background. I'm not stitching on the color. The color of my thread is the color of my background. So as long as I don't stitch on the colored lines, you will barely see those stitches. And again, I don't have to do a lot of setup for this. I could use my extension table if I choose. But it's not the end of the world if I choose not to, because it's not a whole lot that I'm doing with this. So I'm following my foot, and I'm just going right down the edge. And somebody is playing bobbin chicken, because we're almost out of bobbin. But you know I don't waste thread. I'm not going to throw away a couple yards of thread. I'll take my chances. I'm just gonna make it. I think I ran out. So we're gonna find out in a second. Aha, yep. So I got right to the end, not a problem. Because we'll pick that up from the other side and we'll be fine. And then what we will do, we won't show you the monstrosity that is on the other side of the sewing machine. And of course, I don't have a bobbin for that same thread. But that's fine because I have a bobbin that's going to work. Oops. So we're gonna make that bobbin do what it do. And then we have, I think, this one, and then, yeah, one more square that I need to do. Okay, did that pop out? Of course it did. That stitch didn't sound right. And once I looked at it, I'm like, yeah, that wasn't right. I didn't click that bobbin in. There we go. Let's try that one more time. And I knew something wasn't right because I saw the color popping up through the background and I was like, wait a minute. But no, what do? I keep going. Thank you for tapping the screen and getting us to 15.3K. Thank you for joining me. Again, we are working on the placemat from Zakka Sewn. I am doing a slightly different version, and only slightly because the only thing that I changed is I am not rounding the corners. So I opted that I preferred a rectangular shape than doing a curved, doing the curves. So you would easily just get your template. You could cut those curves off. I'm not cutting those curves off. Okay, so everything is done. It's been stitched down here, and we can pull it on that side so that you could see the stitches for the quilting. That's it. You don't have to do a lot. Now, of course, this has been made to be cut, and we're not cutting. So what I am going to do to make sure that I have this right, I'm laying this down, and the other one will fit with this as well, so I'm not worried about it. I'm telling you, if you could see the pile of this over here. Okay. So all I'm going to do right now, because I changed the pattern slightly, I just have to change the dimension just a little bit. All I need to do is line this up with this edge. I'm going to cut out the two at once. Your background can be any background that you want. You're not going to see it anyway when it's laying flat down unless you flip it over. So I'm just going to the edge of what I have, and I waited until after I quilted it, because if it shrunk a little bit from the quilting, then I can capture it at that point. So this is where I want to capture everything. Okay, and then I don't need the second one. I can save that for the other one. Okay, so now remember, this is only going to this edge. So I'm going to do no more than 1/4 inch all the way around, leaving enough of an opening so that I can flip it inside out. If it matters to you where that flip is, let's say that you want it at the top or the bottom, make sure that you determine what the top is. You could, let me just show it to you the right way. I won't show it to you the Jennifer way, because right now I'm showing you the Jennifer way, because it shifted and Jennifer would just make that work. The right way is to just kind of clip to hold everything in place, or pin, rather than just doing it the rogue Jennifer way, which is to just do it and make it work. Okay, so we won't do it the rogue way. And again, like even in bag making, a lot of times you will either cut your fusible fleece or your batting short of that 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, depending on what your seam is, just so that it's not in your seam allowances when you go to turn this. It gives you a much flatter project opposed to having it in the seam allowances and then they seem kind of thick. I'm pivoting at the 1/4 inch, right? So then that way when I go to clip my ends, my corners, I'm not clipping stitches. It usually wouldn't affect this, but sometimes it will, and you don't want those stitches to come out. So just about when I get to the end of the batting, that's about the 1/4 inch. But if I need to wheel turn it, I can wheel turn it and then keep going. And I always say, if I wasn't running my mouth, looking at comments, showing different parts, explaining, this process wouldn't take as long. So you absolutely know that when I worked on this last night, it did not take me quite as long as it's taking me now to do this. Which is the great thing for you, because it won't take you that long to put these together. And again, I did 2 up until this point at the same time. I need enough room to turn this in and out. I do back tack or back stitch before the at the beginning and at the end, so that I don't, when I turn this inside out or right side out, I don't pull at those at the opening and rip those stitches. Cutting those corners off so that my points can point. Hey, Miss Sabs, how are you doing, darling? Okay, all those are done. You can finger press. Now, of course, I didn't make that opening as wide as I should have, so we're getting ready to fight. But that's okay. I'm going to go to the farthest corner, and I'm going to pull that through. If you don't even have to use fusible fleece, you don't have to use batting, you could use a stabilizer like Pelon 808. You could use something lighter like SF 101 if you want something lighter. It's totally up to you how thick or how thin you want those placemats to be. If you are using scrap pieces of batting and or stabilizer, you can use what you have. I'm doing fine, darling. As usual, I had my nap, so I am ripping and running right now. If I didn't have the nap, I think I'd be dragging. I use a chopstick, and I go right in there and get that corner. Go right in there, get that corner. Go right in there and get that corner. And I think I have one more. No, got them all. Okay. So this is why I like to call it the pillow method, because technically if I put stuffing in this right now, it could be a pillow. Okay. Once it's turned out, other than me pressing this, those edges are going to turn under. Once I press this, I can just close this up, and you can either whip stitch it, or depending, if you're doing a top stitch, and you don't have to do a top stitch around it, you can whip stitch it and be done. You could just top stitch it and capture that stitch when you top stitch it. Okay, so we know we turn that inside out when we were tussling with that a little bit. Your placemat can get a little wrinkled. Okay, if your backing wants to play games with you and come around to the front, you can turn it on the back and just kind of force it to go back, just so that it doesn't peek through a lot. It is not through the end of the world if it peeks through just a little bit. It's so they're not hard. Like these Avis, they were really, like I said, these were easy. And like I said, me running my mouth and everything else, like if I sat down and did these in a night, I could have gotten all 4 done. So when I worked on it last night, because I try to gauge if I can. Now, I mean, if it's a quilt, I can't do it. But if it's a small project, I try to gauge like how long it's going to take, what kind of prep do I need. And then I like having sometimes a picture of it, because I feel like the picture that was on the cover was very muted. It was very white, because she used white linen, and I felt like these colors pop more. I was like, yeah, this was perfect to use these colors. Okay. So again, like, this is the first one. This is the one I did yesterday that I took the picture of. And again, this was the napkin ring, and it's just a snap. And you know, bad girlies, you all have your snaps. Got that from the Zon. And we won't discuss the fact that, again, me practicing that is going to be what's going to avoid me today making the mistake that I make when I do that snap real quick. Okay. So we're going to start right here. We're going to go right along the edge. And again, this is personal preference. If you want to top stitch this, you don't have to. But I think because I used a fusible fleece, or if I spray basted it and I didn't do a lot of quilting, I think this kind of holds this in place so that when I wash it, it won't cause the batting to bunch up in the placemat. And I'll give you an example, like when it does that, if you think about like your bras, and you know how they put padding in the bras, and then when you go to wash them, if you don't take the padding out, number one, either that padding comes out in the wash and you're like, where did this come from? Or when you go to put it on, you're like, why the padding is all shifted and bent. Well, you know, it's sometimes your batting does that if it shifts around after it's been washed, if it's not quilted and, you know, stitched down in certain places. So that top stitch kind of helps to keep that from happening. But the thing is, that napkin ring goes even faster, goes together faster than this does. And I was like, game changer with those napkin rings. Because I'll tell you, when I set my table and I'm looking for a napkin ring to match the theme and everything else, I was like, I could whip these up with some scraps, and to know me is to know that I will absolutely have every theme known to man, or I could scrap it together. So imagine you're in a sorority and you want your napkin rings or your tablescape to be your sorority colors, your fraternity colors. You could absolutely piece these together and make them out of your colors and have that on your table for your next event. Well, right, and whoops, and that's one of the reasons why I'm gonna have to clip that off. I went off the edge, so I'm gonna go back. What's one of the reasons why I like to make sure that I have some sort of matching fabric or some kind of fabric that I like on the back, because absolutely I will flip it over, especially if somebody had the nerve to get something on my placemats, because these are a light color. So if you get something on it and I can't use it, I can absolutely use the other side. So I can either make them the same on both sides, or I can have a solid color on the back. Okay, so again, here we go. And like Miss Avis was saying, I could use this side. So I could absolutely use this for my where is this? Is this the color I wanted? Nope, nope, nope. Where's my color? Okay. So of course we know offline. Let me make sure this is the right length because, yeah. So we won't discuss what I did last night. I made the napkin ring twice. And once because, well, we'll discuss it. So once because I messed up while I'm getting this ready. Once because I messed up. And then once because I wasn't paying attention and I put the snap on wrong. So this was like my tester. And when I put the snap on, this is the way the snap goes. Not the end of the world, but that wasn't the way it was supposed to go. So I had to do another one because Jennifer wasn't paying attention when Jennifer put the snaps on, and then had to do it again. So I wasn't a happy camper last night when I had to do that again. And then what happened was, because I'm always honest about my stuff, how about when I went to do it the second time, how about I did it the same way? And I'm sitting here looking at it and still messed it up. I said, that's why you don't need to do anything when you're tired. Okay. So you're going to have 2 pieces of fabric. This is batik, so again, it really doesn't matter front to back because they look the same. And she calls for a certain measurement for this, but it really doesn't matter for the scraps that I have. I can just use the scraps because we're going to use a template. And so this is the template. So your front and backs are together, right sides together. I don't have a right side because of the batik. Now, I'm going to put a pin in here because we're going to talk about like what she does versus what I'm going to do. Because I was like, no, I'm not doing that. Now, I don't have a marking pen down here, so we're going to make this do what it do. But what she did is she said what Rashida does for the pattern is she takes the template and she goes around the template and she draws all the way around the template. And again, this would work out so much better if I got up and got my marking pen opposed to doing it the way that I'm doing it. And I'm gonna have to move No, I don't. Okay. So she marks it all the way around. Then what she does is she takes this to her machine like this and just sews on the line and then cuts everything out. I was like, yeah, that didn't work out well for me when I did that. These are not even, is this even? I need to move this down just a little bit. And so I didn't care for that. And I felt like I couldn't get around the corners the way that I needed to get around the corners. So I preferred, and again, this is just my preference from the book, I prefer to cut this out because I felt like I could get around the corners better when I use my 1/4 inch foot than I could when I just sewed around it and then cut it out. So I just feel like me just cutting it out this way worked better for me. And again, you know, whichever way works for you. I did the orange, that first one that I showed you that I messed up. I used her method to do it because I was like, I wasn't sure, you know, like I knew what I was doing, but I just wanted to see how she did it. And I was like, no. Okay, so I have the two pieces. In theory, the right sides of these two are together. I have the batting on top. I'm gonna take the pins out for a second to take the paper off. And I'm going to just add some clips to hold this in place. You're going to do this the same way that you did the placemat. We're going to leave an opening and we're just going to sew all the way around. And like I said, I just felt like the second time I did this, doing this the way that I typically do things, I felt like I could get around that corner faster and I didn't have to fight with it to get it around the corner. So I can actually go a little bit faster. And my fingers, when I get around the corner, are just help guiding that curve right along the edge of my 1/4 inch foot. Until I get all the way around. And remember, we're stopping short to be able to pull this through. Okay, take your foot off the pedal, then it's still going. Okay. There we go. Okay, so all the way around, opening at the top. We're going to clip our corners. So then that way, right around the curves, I would say, not the corners, because there are no corners in around it. But we're going to go around. And I'm just snipping right almost to the stitch. I don't like to go real close to the stitch because some of us, when we go to the stitch, we go through the stitch. And then let's do the other side. And again, you could use all of the scraps that you want. If you're doing this for St. Patty's Day, because today was St. Patty's Day. So, you know, I get dressed up for school, for the kids. So for this, we could have all sorts of greens. Like it could be whatever colors you want it to be. So they could all be the same color or they could all be different. You're going to come in here and you're going to go in between the two layers of fabric. One layer of fabric has your batting on it. The other layer of fabric doesn't. We're going to get in there and we're going to turn this right side out. That clipping is a godsend because it's going to help when I take my chopstick to get a nice rounded edge. And I'm just pushing those edges just to get everything nice and straight. Okay, and then I'm going to press this, but that's it. This is going to get tucked in, so don't worry about that. If you felt some kind of way, it really didn't bother it much to have that batting in the seam, but if, you know, it bothers you, absolutely, you could have trimmed that batting back just a little bit to about 1/8 of an inch, but yeah, I think as small as this was, I think the world wasn't worried about it, so, you know, we left it as is. The ironing of this helps to flatten this out. And I like to use a little bit of steam to get it nice and flat, especially around those edges where I know I have a lot of extra bulk because of the batting. And I just want to make sure that I round it out the way that it needs to be rounded out. Okay. And again, we're going to take this back to our machine and we're going to top stitch and we're going to capture that edge that I did not want to whip stitch. Again, your project, your choice. I'm not whip stitching nothing. Right along that edge. You are going through a lot of fabric and you're going through a lot of bulk because of that batting. And I'm trying to keep as close to the edge as I possibly can. And I don't want to force my needle. So if it wants to stop, that's why I'm like hand cranking it. And if it's thumping like this, it's probably time to change the needle. So I probably will, I'll probably do one more project and then change it. You know me, it'll still be here next week. Now this is one of those things that, like, while I'm watching the sleep crew, because I can't call them the no sleep crew because they keep going to bed. This is one of those projects that I can work on while I'm watching them because I can mindlessly get these done. So here we go, right? And this is what it's going to look like. And we're going to have a jewel in the front of it to hold it in place. So here's the one that we worked on before. I used gold. It is totally up to you what color you want to use. Is this the pack I had? No, it is not. Somebody's going to need to buy a different dining room table because she is tearing up her dining room table. So I have a snap kit. And I'm going to stick with the colors that I've been working with. The Zahn is your friend. Make sure I have all 4. Okay, that would be nice if you... So you should have a hammer for some of this. We don't have a hammer. So we're going to make it do what it do. We're going to use the seam ripper. And I am going to try again to pay attention to what I did. So I'm going to hold that open just so that I remember what I did. You could mark the center. You know I like to go rogue. So I am just creating a hole. And I can use my seam ripper to get in there. I can use an AWL to get in there. I could use my scissors to get in there. I just want to create the hole for that snap, depending on the type of snap that you're using. And then if and when I get that hole there, I can just pop it through. This is the part where this goes here. This is the top of this, because we pay attention. And because I'm being trifling, I'm going to use my Kanger scissors. Because I left the thing upstairs. Pop that in place. Boom, bam. This is done on the front. Now, I need this part on the back. So this is going to go through that way. And we're going to trust ourselves again to do this. But again, depending on the snap you have, depends on what this will look like for you. For me, this is my method for the kit that I have. And I can put this in my Amazon store if you're interested in getting this exact one. We're going to pay attention because we didn't pay attention last night. Okay, we're paying attention. We're paying attention. Okay, good girl. Good job, Jude. You're actually going to impress yourself today with following directions. We're going to use those scissors instead of that hammer that we should have gone upstairs to get. Oops. And voila. Just like that. It's done. And we can snap it. And it's finished. So if we take our napkin, is that the way I would say it? Yeah. And whatever fold you come up with for this, snap that into place. And then however you decide to set that on your table, that sits on your table, and boom. And you have enough choices for that you would have there. Thank you for getting me to 22K. I appreciate you. So easily enough, like, and then what was that? Like, that wasn't even 10 minutes, was it? Like, that's how easy this is. So imagine with the kit that you have, how many of these napkin rings you could make. So thank you. So this could absolutely be done, you know, for whatever season. So you're getting ready. Like, what I like is it could be a hostess gift. So you could make the napkin rings for the napkin holders. You can make the napkin holders for, thank you, Shamir. You can make these napkin holders for a hostess gift. So, you know, this is something, and like, I'm like, that's me. I'm the one that would absolutely do this and then go to your house. And it's only my friends I would do that too. And then I would switch everything out. So you could gift them the napkins, and then you could gift them the rings. And then they could always have the rings, and then possibly have them for different occasions, especially if they still like to set their table. And we know that there are a ton of people who do not set their tables. So if you didn't want to make the placemats, you could make the rings. The only reason why I did both together was because I knew the placemat was going to take some time to do, and I knew I was going to be finished this like 10 minutes into the live. So I was like, yeah, we could absolutely do this and attach this to this. So I did 2 projects in one just because of that. But I will absolutely finish all the rings. Now, she does 2 rings in her picture. I only do 1 because these were big. And so somebody, when she was reading the directions for the snaps, didn't realize how big the rings were. I mean, the snaps were. And I was like, oh. And then I had the nerve to get the snaps that they said are leather snaps, but they still work. And I still like how pronounced it is and what it looks like. So I absolutely am going to finish the rings with this one just because I like it. I might use them for something else, but I really like the way that these came out. So I saved the dark ones because I do have a project that I'm working on and I might need those for something. But just pay attention to the direction in which they go because like I said, I messed up with the other one, but these are absolutely cute. They're adorable. You can wash and press them and then boom, you have them. So again, this is from the book, Zakka Sewn. And in the back of the book, and she even advertises them together. So she has her placemat here. Again, she rounded her edges. I preferred not to round my edges, so I did leave them square instead of rounded. And, you know, she did show it with her napkin ring. So everything is here for this. I chose to do this all at one time. Now, ask me if I'm going to do another project next week. I do have something that I could do next week. It's not on the front. It's probably somewhere in the book. So I am thinking about another project. So I might become a bad girl to get this one done, just because she does have bags in here. But again, there are quilts in this book. There are small quilts, small quilt hangings. We made this one. We made the floral one. So we did that one. We did the little pouches. We've made these. So we've made 5 different projects out of her book, which is good for me because usually I sometimes only make anything out of a book. I get it and then don't do anything with it. Like that Mimi G book. But so there are some things that I can make on here. There are some things that I'm like, well, I don't know what I can do with that. Now I do like this down here, and I do have some upholstery fabric that I could do. So this is actually like a doorstop. And I just need to figure out like what I can put in this, like if it's going to be pebbles or something like that, because I'm going to take it to school. And while we might use rice and beans at home, the 4-legged creatures at school would love that. So especially on a nice long winter break, I mean, not a winter break, a nice long spring break. So I absolutely could use something else. So if I can think of what else to use that's not going to break my back to carry it from point A to point B, I might make this for work because I think that would be really cute to keep the door open. And if I have enough of this fabric, yeah, if I have enough of this fabric, I might be nice to my colleagues. So I may make it for them as well. So this seems like a simple project. It's not really a quilted project, but I do like the fact that, you know, it's a nice little door jamb to have by the door. So I am thinking about making that one. Like I said, the bag is cute. The quilt is cute, but I like something a little bit more than this. But there are some really great patterns in here for you to try. Again, this is Zakka Sewn, and it is Rashida Coleman Hale, and no relationship, but you know I'm going to bang for a Hale. So she's a female, she's African American, and she married a Hale. You know, we don't always make the best choices in men. No. So like I said, she married a Hale, so we're both Hales. So I'm Jennifer G. Hale, and she is Rashida Coleman Hale. So thank you everyone again for joining me. Thank you for tapping the screen with the lights. Thank you for getting your daily heart me's. If you did not get all your points from your daily heart me's, where are we at? Right here, make sure that you click on that little white oval and you collect all of the points. Like that's a key thing for engagement for TikTok right about now, to make sure that you get those. So, you know, it's always advised to wait a couple seconds before we get them. So you get your daily heart meet, you make sure that you get your little points so that you're straight. You don't want to lose those. Thank you so much. And yes, Shamir. It means I finished now 2 of these so far. I still have 2 more to go, and I finished 2 of these, and I have all the projects that I have done in this book. I have finished. So So I'm just going to say that. I'm going to leave that where it is, Shamir. I'm going to leave that where it is. So I'm working hard on some things, and I have some other stuff that I need to get done this week. But I am finishing projects in 2026. So thank you, everyone. Have a great evening. At 10:51, I'm doing good, finishing in under 2 hours. So thank you so much. Hey, happy St. Patty's Day to those who celebrate. I am the Shenanigans coordinator for the Ninth Grade Academy. Have a great evening. Thank you. Have a good evening, Belinda, RV. And I'll see you next Tuesday, but you know you'll see me around these social media streets on somebody's live. So have a good one.